the very doable lifting body version of the shuttle, or a delta-wing version. 1970s technologies allowed for specially shaped and baked thermal tiles to be glued to the wings, and so it was done. Later technologies were never retrofitted to the shuttle, but in small experimental sections. Follow-on spacecraft such as the Air Force X-37B were equipped with this newer, better material, and as you'll see, all early shuttle concepts had deployable jet engines that were dropped. One of the most promising early designs was an upscale version of the HL-10. This design proposed by McDonnell Douglas and is on the backside of a completely reusable booster. Both men were famous on TV, but only one signed up for it. This is the NASA Ames M2F2. And her pilot, Bruce Peterson, seen her with the HL-10 that he saved by a miracle on its first flight. Flight 16 was a last unplanned drop test before the installation of the XLR-11 rocket engine. During the entire trip, the vehicle was a powerless glider. These flight profiles pioneered what would be known as the shuttle hack, or heading alignment circle. The vehicles lost altitude quickly, as the shuttle later would, following these same approaches from space. On final, headed south, Peterson thought a helicopter position to call out altitude was in its way, so he diverted under it. Then, as he attempted to rise back to the glide slope, the vehicle briefly went out of control. He recovered control, but was now too low to complete his flare. He was lowering the landing gear when the M2F2 struck the lake bed short of the runway. He experienced up to 4 Gs in the crash and would have walked away without injury had the canopy not been shattered into the lake bed on the final flop over. It took a while to get Bruce Peterson out of the wreckage, and he was badly injured. He made a miraculous but painful and long recovery, and using the crash for the opener of the TV series was not his idea. He returned to flight status and became Dryden Safety Officer, and the vehicle was also rebuilt, this time with better roll protection around the canopy and a third fin to help prevent out-of-control rolls. The redesigned M2F3 went on to make very successful flights, and is now in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. A few years ago, in retirement, Peterson died, but his legacy will last forever. The crash had other casualties. Headquarters became less inclined to try a shuttle design without wings, and was not overly impressed with the strong performance record of the rebuilt and redesigned craft. The delta-wing shuttle design would prevail. One key technology was pioneered in the M2F3, and that was fly-by-wire, avoiding hydraulics. This was also used on the shuttle. The Langley HL-10 had a much better track record once improvements were made to the shape of the fins, which almost made its first flight its last. Early attempts at Star Trek's shuttlecraft were inspired by this design, until the studio accountants said to try a plainer, boxier design. Northrop built both the M2F2 and HL-10 for $2 million apiece, saving by using off-the-shelf T-38 and F-104 parts for the landing gear. The cockpit was simple and could accommodate pilots in flight suits or in spacesuits. A special pylon was attached under the existing X-15 pylon, and the lifting body was dropped at 45,000 feet, generally headed northeast. It would turn left, make a landing to the south. The XLR-11, seen previously on the X-15 prior to the XLR-99 installations, took the HL-10 higher and faster than any of the other lifting bodies. But once the engines were off, the vehicle was a glider, not unlike the later space shuttles after the deorbit burn. Although crash footage from the M2F2 was used, the television pilot of the $6 Million Man used the HL-10 as the stage prop. Had it not been for the success of this program, NASA would have never tried to land shuttles the same way, as you'll see with Discovery out of the hack on this same glide slope.
It's coming out from the bottom of this cloud right here, see it?
Discovery copy,
Runway in sight.
about 1 minute to touchdown.
And as you can tell, it begins by dive bombing the runway, and then the nose comes up. At KSC, once the shuttle slips behind the mangroves, it's really hard to see anything but the top of the tail.
Standing by for roll stop. Discovery, roll stop.
Needless to say, launches were much easier to spot. Some launches I couldn't make the 188-mile trip to KSC, so I watched from Tampa Bay, literally. This was a launch I had already watched scrub twice after driving the distance. Some came in from all over the world, leaving empty-handed. Meanwhile, the Russians were launching Soviets, or Russian Soyuz in blizzards. Even though I'm on the other side of Florida, you can still see it. Everyone knows that I'm a huge fan of the United Launch Alliance and the EELV program that came ultimately from Challenger slots. The Atlas V and Delta IV will make great afterburners for human crews. Reluctantly, without any other choice, NASA is starting to agree with me. I told three-flight shuttle veteran Charlie Walker, I do miss the eye candy of the shuttle. These leaner, greener, cleaner machines do the job, but with less fanfare. Charlie said NASA's SLS might even be better than the shuttle. I said as fast as SpaceX and others are going, NASA had better hurry up, or they're going to be left in the moon dust. Unlike the Ares, I am very impressed with the SLS, and it will use or reuse shuttle engines pulled off the 3 survivors. But once used on the SLS, that's it. They go to the bottom of the ocean. Cheaper versions for SLS are being developed for use once the shuttle inventory is exhausted, although I hesitate to use cheap and NASA in the same sentence. I think I have about 25 shuttle SS at least sitting around, and NASA frequently changed them out between missions on the shuttles.